Our top story, U.S. President-elect Barack Obama is making a historic journey by train from Philadelphia to Washington. Obama is tracing the route Abraham Lincoln took nearly a century and a half ago. In Delaware, he stopped to pick up the Vice President-elect Joe Biden. America's 44th president saying the two men are prepared for the challenge of changing Washington.
And we will fight for you every single day that we're in Washington, because Joe and I are committed to leading a government that is accountable, not just to the wealthy or to the well-connected, but to you.
The six-city whistle-stop tour will also take Obama to Baltimore before rolling into Washington after nightfall. And Barack Obama is about to make that stop in Baltimore, Maryland. As we wait for that to happen, we're joined now by Solon Simmons. He is a professor at George Mason University, and he specializes in U.S. politics. Mr. Simmons, good to see you.
Great to see you again.
This is a historic weekend that's underway across America, right? And right around the world as people watch this. Today, it's all about this train tour that Barack Obama's taking. What's the significance of this journey, taking the train?
Well, Barack Obama has an amazing symbolic imagination. And what we see here is a recreation in some ways of the historic journey, as you mentioned, of Abraham Lincoln to Washington, D.C. And in some ways, you can think of the entire campaign, which began in Springfield, Illinois, and is ending in this way, as a kind of allegory or representation of that journey of Lincoln to Washington. And in some ways, he's recreating that idea. And so I think that this is no small order, because as Lincoln left for D.C. in those days, he recognized he might not return, and then he was taking on a task larger than George Washington had faced. So Barack Obama at least sees himself in a very important historical light, and we're watching some of that play out symbolically today.
What about this analogy to Abraham Lincoln, though? Why? Because back in 1861, the country was divided on racial and economic issues. But, you know, some also say that what Obama's doing here, it's really more like Jimmy Carter, what he tried to do to show Americans that the government's being returned to the people, no?
Well, in some ways, I think that's right. And remember, what Jimmy Carter was trying to do was he was trying to reenact Thomas Jefferson, who was the first to take that long walk along Pennsylvania Avenue there and back, and that we're now recreating or will recreate on Tuesday. So the symbols are quite thick. And I think that your question brings up something interesting, which is Barack Obama, I think, wants to avoid the trap of Jimmy Carter. Remember, he was going to bring a kind of change to America, and was going to, after the Watergate scandal, bring a kind of hope. And I think that is the kind of president that Barack Obama does not want to be. He wants to at least be a John F. Kennedy, and it sounds like he wants to be an Abraham Lincoln, so we'll see how well he can do.
You mentioned that, you know, when Obama speaks, or touched on that, he sort of speaks in very poetic ways. What do you think it is that attracts so many people to him? Is it the way in which he frames things and he creates this imagery for a lot of people? And also, earlier today it was interesting, Obama said, you know, when Americans hear the sound of the whistle train, they can dream of a better life. Just, you know, really poetic in terms of what he says.
Fascinating. Yeah, it's fascinating, and I say that's the symbolic imagination he has. He's such an intellectual, and by that I mean he's quite playful with ideas and with history, and he also has a certain piety or reverence for it. And he has this incredible taste for American history, and he's able to bring those symbols to bear when he needs to. And I think also the personal drama with the historical element of having an African American in the presidency. Abraham Lincoln, of course, famous for turning the Civil War into a war about slavery. It had not originally been conceived in that way. And has been turned into kind of a liberation. And so I think that in some ways, Barack Obama is hoping to turn the page on that great tragedy in American history. And at least I think we'll be able to end the culture wars if he can't go back so far to do that.
Let me ask you, the reason, or what do you think the reason is that Obama is making some speeches as he continues on, makes some of these stops during the train?
Well, yeah. The whistle stop idea is quite nostalgic, and this speaks to the symbols there, because when Lincoln came in February of 1861, he went on a whistle stop tour. So this is the way life was lived at that point. You would stop along, you'd travel for a while, you'd make a stop and get out and talk to people, or talk from the back of the train, and that's what Lincoln had done. And so they put an old car on this Amtrak train. It's an extremely nostalgic view and brings us back away from the 19th century. And I think in some ways Obama doesn't see himself as a 20th century president, but sees his role in the 21st century as something like that of the 19th century presidents, which is much more momentous in some ways. So it's a very interesting symbolic turn.
And the fact that he is going to, or is planning to walk in the inauguration parade, it's only been done by two other presidents, right? Jimmy Carter, George Washington. What kind of message is that sending?
Well, I think that the message, I think it's Jefferson who is the famous first walker. It's a move to small town, populist America, getting the average person back. And Jimmy Carter wanted to remind the people of the debate in the early part of the country was between the Federalists that were more of an elitist group and Jefferson anti-Federalists. And so I think Obama wants to bring that kind of democratic spirit. Of course, this was the birth of the Democratic Party. The Democrats were derived from Jefferson. And so I think he's trying to carry that forward. And I think that George Bush did walk a few steps, although he was being pelted with eggs at the time. So he was eventually going to be followed with shoes. So we hope that Obama will be safe and it'll all come off very well.
Yeah, security is another issue, isn't it? What do you think we can expect in terms of that? We've heard some details coming out already, but what do you think it'll be like? Well,
just driving around the city today, it's amazing. The barricades, the sheer scope and size of the area closed off, quite surprising and gives the city a strange feel. So I expect we'll see something like we've never seen before.
The expectations are huge, aren't they? I mean, he's yet to be inaugurated, but even during these speeches, the expectations are what? What is it that the public wants from Barack Obama?
If I put it in a word, it'd be redemption. That is, there's a sense in which the great tragedy of race has ripped the fabric of America, and Lincoln stands for that, and so many others do. And I think that Obama, in his very person and in his understanding of history, has that opportunity to give us a sense of being a house united rather than a house divided. And so we're all hoping for that. Now, it's a huge order, and I actually feel for the guy, because how can you carry this forward in a single person? We'll see if he can do it.
Right, and we're still waiting for Barack Obama to take to the podium there, but clearly things continuing to roll along. We'll bring it to you as soon as he takes that stage, and we'll continue to watch it as well. Solon, what else can you say in terms of, I mean, the theme of the inauguration is renewing America's promise. What promise? What renewal?
Well, I think that there's the general promise of liberation, of liberty, of the revolution, and also that, of course, of moving forward from slavery. So I think there's quite a bit that can be renewed, and it's an open-ended promise in many ways.
Barack Obama has, of late, said that the conflict in the Middle East is going to be one of his first priorities. The economic crisis is going to be one of his first priorities. He's already indicated that one of his first foreign trips will be here to Canada. So there's certainly a lot on his plate. Do you think he's going to touch on a lot of that during his main speech?
I think so. We'll probably see, if he doesn't speak about the economy today, we'll probably see at least some mention of the hard times and how difficult the task is, the practical task that he faced, although this is largely a ritual experience highlighting the symbolism of the event rather than a programmatic adventure for today.
It'll be quite something. Okay, we're going to take a short pause, take a listen in to some of what's getting underway this hour. This is outside Baltimore City Hall.
He said that we must now change.